Once it's going for the season, it's usually
Right.
good unless you let it sit for a month without starting. It just doesn't sound as fast as it usually
No,
is.
definitely not.
Well, I would guess that's because it sat for more than a month without starting. It's a finicky 46-year-old transmission, and I'd rather not roll start it, but
I'm fine just trying to roll start it if we have to. This is a 1978 Volkswagen Transporter Type 2 microbus. As you can tell, it is not quiet and it is not fast. There's no power steering. The only climate control is the windows. There's a pervasive smell of dead mice and gasoline fumes, but for some reason, driving it just always puts a smile on my face. I recently replaced a fuel line that a mouse had chewed through that was just leaking all over the heat exchanger, so I hope it makes the hour-long trek back to my place without bursting into flame.
Back is broke, my head is numb. This new generation's making me feel old and dumb.
Finn.
The road is dark, but I can see.
Hey, buddy. Oh, he's a boy.
I know I'm getting close to bed.
Okay, where to begin?
We wanted something fun to get out and about and go camping with, to have adventures. Vermont in general is not a good place to look for VW buses because of road salt and rust. My older brother lived out in Ashland, Oregon, and we kind of tasked him to looking for a bus. So that was 1990. Only 12 years old. It's a 78.
Well, this dirt has been sitting here for probably about 40 years.
He and his wife bought it and started a drive cross country to bring it to us.
Whew. Believe it or not, those are my parents. They're, how should I say, genetically related to me, and a couple of excellent people. They passed down one or two hippie genes when I was born, and now they've passed down this hippie van. His name's Frog, but with an umlaut over the O, so it's Frug, because he's German. It's a Volkswagen. It's a Volkswagen. It's a Frug. It's a Volkswagen.
City was killing me now.
What a difference a day of cleaning and scrubbing and vacuuming and scrubbing and washing and mopping and removing carpet glue makes. I mean, it looks good.
Well, as much as I'd like to get straight into installing the new floor, I gotta patch these holes first. They were originally just covered with old crusty plywood, which is probably the reason there was so much dirt caked to the floor. I've already wire brushed them and sprayed them with a bit of undercoating. So next step is to make some nice metal patches for them. Sure as heck not pretty, but it's function over form for all the bits that will be under the floor. Speaking of which, let's build the floor.
All right, so what did you do with the flooring here?
That took most of the summer. It started out as this disgusting black rug, or what I thought was a black rug. When I removed the sink unit, there was a brown square under where the sink unit used to be. So the blackness was just 40, 50 years of crud.
Not get torn, not get worn. Hand me down, hand me down.
My parents don't really throw things away. They'll always reuse or repurpose anything that they can, sometimes down to the individual screw or nail. Whew, last one. I may not be quite that dedicated, but I'm trying to honor that mentality as best I can during this build. It's also just a responsible approach to life, right?
Hand me down, hand me down. Hand me down, hand me down.
All this OSB was salvaged from the trash wood dumpster at my work. And this flooring, in its previous life, was stock on a Home Depot rack, and all I had to do was give a computer $70. It is surprisingly tough to find quality scrap flooring when you don't try very hard.
During their trip in this envelope, this is way before digital technology existed, they're Polaroid shots of their cross-country trip in the bus. This is day one when they took off from Oregon and then drove it up to us in Huntington, Vermont.
I do all those things I said, but I never did. You know I would, you know I would.
So that's kind of how it got here.
You know I would. You know I. You know I would. You know I. Don't throw me out in that cold, cold rain. No, no. Hand me down, hand me down. Don't throw me out in that cold, cold rain. No, no. Hand me down, hand me down. Hand me down, hand me down. Hand me down, hand me down.
Whew, sweet. We've got ourselves a floor. It's always the things that you think will be the simplest that end up being the most difficult.
Coming along, man.
Coming along.
Yeah.
Finally,
It's pretty cool.
took me like a full month just to get the floor in because of various.
Yeah. This
Various
is coming along.
setbacks,
Is this something you just finished building, or?
Yeah, this is. I wouldn't say finished building.
Well, I mean, you're in the process of building.
Yeah. This is the original kitchen unit from the Riviera camper conversion back in Oregon. It basically just took up space in the bus for most of my childhood because the pump barely pumped and the fridge barely refrigerated. Oh, there's stuff in there. So then it just took up space in the garage. I can salvage the sink and the water reservoir, but the rest of it is just disintegrating.
So that summer we took a trip. That was
1990.
like June or July of summer of 1990 to the Maritimes. But we were on a time schedule because we had to drive down, well, half the length of Nova Scotia to catch an afternoon ferry. I forget the exact time. But we were cruising. We had Frog going 70 miles an hour. Frog does great, chugging right along, but at some point it started missing a little bit, really starting to buck and just not really doing well. And we were like, we're going to miss the ferry. What are we going to do? And at that point we saw just this little sign. Here we are on this 3-lane highway, this little sign by the side of the road that said, "We speak VW," with a little arrow. So we were like,
oh, here we go. This piece of plywood that I removed from the old floor can probably go back in as part of the new kitchen unit. It's got a little bit of water staining, but no mold or rot, so should be good to reuse.
and we ended up in this little homespun garage that these two guys, they had a bunch of restored VWs in their driveway, and we were in a hurry, but these guys were pretty They were like, oh, look at that's a nice bus. They had never seen one that popped straight up. They've seen the Westphalias that have the angled tent. They were kind of like, yeah, that's great. What do you think's wrong with it?
But they took us right away, which was amazing.
It was pretty easy. It was just some old ignition wires and a distributor cap that needed replacing, I don't know, within an hour or so. Back on the road and back at 70 miles an hour and made it to the ferry in Nova Scotia. These are the two dudes.
I think we showed you that.
Oh yeah, I
one
did see
before,
that.
yeah.
Yep. They look like people who would work on people.
Yep.
Stay there on the floor. Sunshine, shine on this frail head of mine. Sunshine, sunshine. You've been making shadows wherever I go. Shadow, don't you bother me.
Let's see, wood scrap. Oh, hey, that should work just fine.
And then more, just lie and stay there on the floor. I'd stay there on the floor.
What's up, buddy? I have a ton of memories in this bus. My sister and I sitting in the back seat, parents up front, chugging along on our way to Grey Fox Bluegrass Festival, inhaling gasoline fumes and the aroma of dead mice stuck in the air vents. Camping in line with hundreds of other vehicles while waiting for the festival gates to open, my sister and I cramming into the stuffy top bunk with our sleeping bags. A bunch of friends crowding around the tiny fold-out table with a board game, trying to escape a downpour with music from the main stage playing through the festival radio station. I can hardly even begin to imagine all the types of people, all the excellent adventures this bus has seen in its 46 years of life.
Well, I way overestimated the square footage of the camper and bought way too much flooring material. But the upside is that I can also use it as countertop. One of my coworkers once said, "Motion is lotion," and that's stuck with me for a while. Keeping your brain busy, keeping your mind busy, just feels good. It just feels healthy. Projects like this, no matter how small or how simple they are, they keep you moving. I'd say that happiness is just a byproduct of staying busy.
And speaking of staying busy, that's another reason that I'm attempting to reuse materials on this build. Imposing limits on resources promotes resourcefulness and creativity. For example, I wasn't planning to use leftover flooring as countertop, but as it happens, it's a surprisingly appropriate material. As I always say, if it can withstand tromping feet, it can withstand chopping beats. I always say that.
Well, that's the general gist of the sink setup. Got a removable sink lid here. Trying to keep it as simple as possible for the sake of versatility. Next step is to make a fold-out, oh that's heavy, make a fold-out table. Using, you guessed it, more flooring.
No, they really couldn't have been better.
We toughened you up inadvertently.
And it wasn't all the time. It was mostly after we got a tank of gas, maybe for the first half hour or so, that you and Kenzie were sitting in the back seat.
And
I don't know if we were good parents or not, but
we would just open the windows.
we would open the window
and hope that the smell dissipated.
There was a gas fume leak that ever since we got the bus, it had gas fumes, and we couldn't figure it out. But then that one trip, it started pouring, so we had to close the windows, and we turned on the defrost system. It was awful, because we had the windows closed, and it was the most horrendous smell of dead mouse. The windows weren't defogging because the entire system was blocked with dead mouse debris.
And I think there were like little confetti pieces of nest coming out.
There were
too, that
little pieces of dust and
flew out of the
mouse
the
fur
vents.
coming
Yeah.
out of the vents. And it was raining hard, and the windshield isn't completely tight, so water was starting to puddle at my feet. We passed a diner and we said, that's a good place to stop. So we stopped to let the rainstorm go by and had a nice midday meal.
So that gives us plenty of counter space for all sorts of activities. Sink is under here. Not completed yet, but we're getting there. Well, I've encountered a little bit of an issue. I overlooked the fitment of this water reservoir. So as you can see, those holes definitely don't line up. So it looks like I will have to remove this backing here so that I can offset this whole reservoir back a few inches so that it actually fits. Cozy in here with the rain outside. Alright, so I added a couple of spacers, a couple of 1-inch spacers to space the back out a little bit. So now, once I remove the sink cover, you can see that the water reservoir hole lines up pretty much perfectly. So final step is to install this trim piece of flooring / countertop to take up the gap that I created. And then I can finally move on with doing the final install of the unit in the bus. Well, that's pretty gross in there.
Tried to get out of state. Maybe kind of fun night, but she couldn't escape. She fell in love with every pretty face she met. She fell in love, but I couldn't relate. And I said, Joan, please don't leave me here alone. And she says, I ain't never coming home.
Not too shabby. Pretty clean, doesn't interfere with anything. Cool.
I'm never coming home.
Alright, I'm going to leave it like that for the time being. We have a functional sink drain and a water reservoir that currently doesn't have any way to get water out of it. Eventually I'm going to put some shelving in here and some curtains across the front and install a sink faucet up top with an electric pump. But for now, I want to get on to installing the solar battery and some lighting before this music festival that I have coming up in a couple of weeks. That is where the auxiliary battery is going to go. The D-rings are for the battery tie-downs. The battery that I have is a 12-volt, 100-amp-hour lithium iron phosphate. Lithium batteries are, well, they're more expensive than lead acid, but they are far superior, well, for many reasons. One, they are much lighter than lead acid, super easy to move around. They also will last way longer, and a 100-amp-hour lead acid is really only a 40-amp-hour due to the recommended discharge amount, but a 100-amp-hour lithium is 100 amp-hours. It just has much more usable capacity. I've mounted a 30-amp charge controller under the seats, and I'm going to run some 8-gauge wire from the charge controller out and around over down in here somewhere, and then down through the old spare tire wheel well to the battery in the engine compartment.
What does the charge controller do?
The charge controller just manages the interface between the battery and the solar panel and your electrical load, so anything you're powering off of the battery. It'll manage the charging of the battery, it'll manage the discharge of the battery, just to not damage anything. This 8-gauge SO cable is definitely overkill. 10 gauge would be plenty, but I found this in the scrap bin at my work, so free copper wire, I'll take it. So in order to have enough room to slide the battery into place, I've had to remove the whole taillight assembly. There should be just enough space once the battery is in for everything to fit.
Hey, beauty. Hello, morning.
And look at that. It just barely squeezes in there. But it fits. The battery's going in the engine.
Oh, okay.
The charge controller is mounted under the seats in here. Fuse box for the load circuits. Since it's air cooled, I want to limit the amount of heat
Oh, wow.
I add to the engine compartment.
They're pretty big, aren't they?
Yeah, that's kind of a bigger one.
How many amp hours is the battery?
It's 100 amp hours. Yeah, which should be plenty for, I mean, I'm basically just planning on running some lights, a little electric pump for the sink, and eventually an electric cooler, and that's really about it. DC circuit breakers. These will act as manual disconnect switches for both the solar panel and the battery. I have 15 amp for the battery. Nope, I have 15 amp for the PV side, the solar side, and 30 amp for the battery side.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a project. It's fun to get into the creative stuff, or the actual stuff that, you know, you see some progress with as opposed to just maintenance work. And that don't look so bad. And this is how you crimp wire when you don't have wire crimpers that are strong enough for 8-gauge wire. Working late, getting sweaty, lots of mosquitoes. It's getting dark, but gotta get this done before the festival. Doesn't necessarily look pretty yet, but we're getting there. Tomorrow, I'll do some wire routing, a little bit of cable tidying.
Our gas station's been closed. The irony's not lost on me. I'm freezing to the bone. But what bothers me is I'm so far away from home.
All right, battery is connected. These two wires here will attach to the PV panel once I get that mounted on the roof. These run up to the front, connect to the charge controller, charge the battery, so on and so forth. Sweet, check this out. Turn on the battery breaker, click. Charge controller engaged. Hell yeah, that's sweet. Next step, I have this LED light strip that I'm going to install all up around the edge up there. Get some nice soft ambient lighting. So let's get on it.
What bothers me is I'm so far away from home. What bothers me is I'm so far away from home, 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 home.
Yep, on our way down to a bluegrass festival, because what other type of festival would you go to in a hippie band?
But what bothers me is you're not sitting next to me. What bothers me is you're not sitting next to me. And I know that life is rough like this road, and sometimes all I do is spin in the snow. And I want you to know that I felt what it's like to feel so low, like a shadow on the road, just a shadow on the road. Let me in from the cold. Old friends are good, but strangers are like gold. 'Cause everything I say is new, nothing gets old.
Fathers, now our meeting is over. Fathers, we must part. And if I never see you anymore, I love you in my heart. Yes, we'll land on shore. Yes, we'll land on shore. Yes, we'll land on shore and be safe forevermore.
Well, here we go, drilling yet another hole in the bus. That should be good for the PV wires to fit through, and then get fed down through the air grate into the engine compartment. And that's where the PV wires will exit to connect to the panel on the roof.
2000.
It was 2000,
It rained. It rained and rained.
and that was when we discovered how rainy festivals can be.
It was just kind of cool getting to know Gray Fox, where there was not a flat place to camp at that site anywhere. The whole site was hills.
Well, maybe we should dig some holes so the wheels can go in on one side, and then it'll level the bus. But the engineers weren't really thinking properly. And
I think she means me. Branham, the young engineer to be, he was probably 13 years old. He was like, Uncle Eric, don't you want to be digging the holes on the other side of the bus?
so it ended up that the bus was even more at a slant.
Frog was always the center point of the campsite, because that's where we had a big, huge tarp that stretched over the entire bus, even with the pop top up. So we had this huge dry space, which was a real gathering point. That's kind of a quick synopsis of the Gray Fox years.
Would you look at that? There are already holes in the panel frame that fit quarter 20 riv nuts perfectly.
Couple hundred watts or what?
Yeah, 260.
260?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, flexible ones? Or?
Flexible would be the ideal, but those are like 4 times as expensive as a frame-mounted panel.
Yeah, yeah.
I work at a solar company, so it was one that they had that they were just, basically trying to get rid of. Got it for a good deal is what it comes down to.
And one of these afternoons, I swear, we'll get up and we'll leave this time. never make it very far. I like you riding in my car with your banjo on your knee. I like you singing my songs.
With all that extra 40 pounds of panel up there, now we need supports to hold Pop Top up.
I'm a man on fire. I'm a man.
All right, let's see if we have solar. Battery breaker on. Always connect the battery to your charge controller first before the PV. And now, PV breaker on. Got a PV light. Very cool. That seems to be working. We're bringing this bus into the 21st century in that there is a Bluetooth app that connects to the charge controller. Battery at 13.8 volts. PV input 27 volts. Current into the battery is around 8 amps. That's excellent. Working like a charm. Well, that's convenient, since the wire for the LED strip runs right under the whole kitchen unit. I can just wire the pump for the sink directly into that same circuit. The pump only draws about, what does it say, 3.5 amps. The LED strip draws no more than 3, so total 6.5, 7 amps. That's plenty of leeway for 14 gauge wire.
When we first got the bus, there was a console here that had an ice box and a sink. There were some other changes that we did. We put in a table that flipped up, and I made new cushion covers years ago.
Which live on.
Which
getting kind of faded.
barely live on.
I kept it up mechanically to my ability, which isn't the same as your ability. Made sure the timing was good and put new points in and gapped them and did all the engine stuff. Our work on the bus was primarily cosmetic. I waxed it a lot. I made sure it looked nice and shiny all the time. As we found out after the bus changed hands to you, that I didn't pay as much attention as maybe I could have to some of the accessories. You know, minor accessories like brakes. What other? Oh, the axles. What are those called? Transaxles?
CV axles.
CV axles. They were kind of falling apart.
This new sink faucet is a little bit sloppy in the original faucet hole, so I made this stainless adapter to cover the gaps.
You don't find old buses that have a rock solid body like Frog does. They're very hard to find. This has never seen salt. We drove it one day in the winter, and that was a 10-mile drive in February. Mm-hmm. That was the only time it was ever on the road in winter in Vermont, that one day.
Frog seems to like two-lane highways.
Yes. Frog likes two-lane highways.
That's where he's bouncy and happy.
Yes, yes. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's a special event kind of vehicle. It's not a camper for everybody, but we still continue to love it.
People in the valley, they don't understand what makes and takes the breaks and forsakes a man. People in the valley, they don't understand the hands which built the roads, the shoveled coal, the seeds were sown.
Pretty rigid. That doesn't really jiggle at all. That's sweet. Man, that is very satisfying. Whoops. Drains a little bit of water, but luckily this flooring / countertop is water resistant, so I'm not too worried about it. Man, that is cool. And you can still, if you wanted to, you could still fill up a glass of water or something without taking this whole countertop off.
But then when you gotta do dishes or, you know, you need a sink for something, just scoop, and then you got a sink with probably the loudest pump I've heard. But it works, and that is what matters. Man, that is sweet. That's a big step. Now I just have to finish doing all the shelving below. And then that's basically the build. Look at me go. Yet another piece of scrap plywood salvaged from the terrible fate that is the dirty wood dumpster.
Goddamn, didn't go to plan. I've been trying my best to be a working man. When dark clouds come, my love, she cries, she cries, she cries, she cries, she cries. Miss mountain sky, tell me why do I have to try so hard to get by? I've been eking out, seeking out, just scraping as I go. Tell me.
This is going to be a funky one. It has to fit around all the sink bits, the drain and the hose for the sink pump. So it's gonna have some funky shapes.
My mama in the valley, she's been so worried. Come on down from that wretched land.
A little bit funky. Dang, it fits first try. That never happens.
Come on down, wash your face, wash your hands of that place. Why must a man break his soul on the rocks of the rivers of the mountains? Oh, but I can't, and not just.
These are the most awkward angles. But that's just the story of my life, just working in awkward, tight spaces at awkward angles.
Miss mountain sky, mountain sky.
That is the shelving unit. Nice. Now I just gotta stock it up with all gear and food.
Seeking out, just scraping as I go. Tell me.
I can easily fit all of my kitchen gear with room to spare. And I got plenty of room for food over here. Put some gear retention here, some gear retention mesh of some sort, maybe some elastic or some paracord. Oops, made a little bit of a mess down here. Love cleaning up sawdust from everything. Yay. Okay, gear has been retained, and I think that's a wrap, folks. So here's the completed build. Let me open up the curtains, actually. I want to eventually replace these curtains because they are so faded. Let's put up the top. It's way heavier. The panel's like 50 pounds, so it is way heavier with the panel on top. So it's like a full-on shoulder press to lift this thing up. All right, gotta catch my breath. That's pretty simple. Super easy to fold out. And I designed it so even with this sink unit here, you can still get both halves of the bed out, get your full width bed.
That's another nice thing about the bed in this bus. It's a full queen size bed.
Cozy.
Which is a rare, the Westphalias, because they have other equipment inside the bus, are a little bit narrower.
Theoretically, you could fit 4 people in here. Back when I used to go on like a lot of camping trips with my family, and my parents would sleep down here. My sister and I would sleep up top. It was pretty cozy.
You and Kenzie would sleep both up top in that little tiny cubby. but you never complained about that.
I think you thought it was cool up there.
So you can imagine young Reed sleeping up here.
You can see the PV wire runs down, and then when the top comes down, it folds inside the camper top, so it's concealed. Yeah.
You just have the one panel up there?
Yep, just one 260 watt panel. And the battery is out in the engine compartment. We have the starter battery over on the right-hand side over there, and then the auxiliary solar battery on the left-hand side. More than enough juice for what I'll need for basically a sink pump and some lights.
You have lights in here?
Yep.
And what else you got powered?
One thing is just this USB phone charger outlet. I'll probably end up wiring it into the armrests that I'm going to put along the side of the seats on both sides, but that's a project for next summer. But the other thing that I'm pretty excited about that's a big upgrade over the last setup. So if you remove the sink cover, you got a sink underneath.
Ooh.
What a surprise. And the pump is pretty loud, which is like a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, it's an upgrade over the last system, which was just this like hand pump thing, so you only had one free hand, but now you got running water. This is the support leg, held in place by magnets on the floor there, and this little loop up top just to hold everything snug in place. The table itself folds up, but you also have a little table extension that comes out. So you have extra table space or counter space. My thought is to put stove here, and then you can put your food prep station over there if it's raining outside and you don't want to prep food outside. So that's the kitchen setup. There's storage underneath. I just have these retention nets just so when you're driving things don't come sliding and crashing down. So if you remove these nets, I got my camp stove stored right in here. Shelving underneath for propane. You got plates, bowls, cutlery, stuff like that. And then this whole right-hand side is designated for food. Eventually I might want to get an electric fridge and run that off of the battery, but for now I'm just going to use a cooler. Simple. The goal for the summer was just to get it functional. So get the sink, get a kitchen area, get the table, have a bed, redo the floor. So now it's a functional camper, but there are a lot of things small things that aren't crucial that I want to improve. Like I want to put a door here that folds down in front of all the under seat storage just to hide all that. Put the armrests back in and try to incorporate some storage into those as well for maybe an Atlas or something like that. I want to redo this entire center console because this was made by my dad years ago and it works great except for the fact that this seat can pivot, and with this center console in here it can't pivot. So I'd like to, when you're set up for camp, be able to spin that whole passenger seat around so it can face backward and you can hang out with your friends and chat, have some extra seating in there. Pretty cozy.
Hear that train pounding on my brain. It's coming to take me away. Lord, it's coming to take me away. Hear that horse ride down that plain, and Lord, it's coming to take my name. Lord, it's coming to take my name. Dreaming of places, wide open spaces. I've been suffocating here too long. I can't afford ya, California. I'll get to you someday.
is a pretty decent place to spend the night.
That line. Hear that train pounding on my brain, and you were rocking and reeling too. Yeah, you were rocking and reeling too.
Okay, let's see. This build took June, July, August, about 4 months to complete, and this is my first real trial run with the setup. I kept it fairly simple so that I could get it done in the summer, and also to allow for versatility. There's not a ton of space in a VW bus, so limiting the number of permanent accessories leaves the space flexible. A lot of the other projects I've done have just been projects. The bus has more history and more memories than it deserves more than just like a project video.
It's more than a machine.
More than just-
It's
yeah,
a,
exactly.
yeah.
It's a time capsule.
Yeah.
That's exactly
That's a
what it
great way
is.
to
And when
put
it really hit me today when I started looking at those old photos. I was like, Frog has been half of our life,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is pretty amazing.
Dinner tonight, just some Progresso chicken and sausage gumbo because I'm lazy and it's school night and I have to go to work tomorrow, so something quick and easy.
I'm doing this camper rebuild for myself because it's so dang cool and everybody wants a camper van, but I'm also doing it to revitalize a time capsule. The memories created in Frog give him his character, and he certainly has character. A 46-year-old two-wheel drive, 67 horsepower microbus is not a camper for everyone, but, you know, since he's part of our family, we accept his idiosyncrasies. Breathing new life into old things, or even just fixing the things you have, are not always the cheapest or most direct routes, but if you're always living for the final product or for tomorrow, then life will be over before you know it.
Dang, that actually looks pretty tasty. It is super mosquito-y here. It's been super mosquito-y all summer. It's like, what, end of September and it's still mosquito-y? This never happens in Vermont. It's just been so dang wet all summer. But that's why I have this this bug net up. It sort of works. There are a couple flying around. Ha! Gotcha. Well, this is the first official use of the camper of the complete camper build, and I gotta say, pretty satisfied so far. Man, I don't know how my entire family camped out of this. This thing's pretty small just for one person, let alone four. I think dishes are just getting the good old camper rinse tonight, because, you know, I just don't feel like actually doing dishes. Note to self, I need a place to hang a dish rag.
In total, I spent around $800 on this build, not including all the mechanical repairs I had to do to make the bus safe to drive. Mind you, I was fortunate enough to have the bus gifted to me by my generous parents in a mostly functional condition.
Just look at how cozy it is. Oh my goodness, it's so cozy. Oh, by the way, have you guys ever had warm milk and honey? Because it slaps.
On projects like this, it's way too easy to spend a lot of money on quick solutions, but the hard part isn't limiting your budget. The hard part is making the time to allow yourself to be resourceful and creative. The hard part is resisting the temptation to choose the clear and easy path, be it financial, social, whatever, because that path leads inevitably to stagnation.
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yes. Dang, that's cozy.
maybe dim the lights a little bit. Oh, God, that's good. Warm milk and honey is just the coziest thing. Highly recommended.
Just last year when we went to GMBR, Green Mountain Bluegrass and Roots Festival in Manchester, and it was your first year of your ownership of the bus. And we got to the campsite, and when I saw Reed get in the bus that night to sleep on the queen size bed and we were going into our tent to sleep on the ground, I was like, what have we done? I was just really jealous. So it took a while for at least me to get used to. I mean, I couldn't be more happy with having the bus in your hands.
Feels like I'm putting some good love into this bus. Giving it the TLC that it needs and bringing it back to life as the camper that it was meant to be.
Took me a while to let go. But I feel so good about it now. So good about it. Couldn't feel better about it.
So, until next time, good night, everyone.
Dreaming of places, wide open spaces. I've been suffocating here too long. I can't afford you, California. I'll get to you sometime. Way down that line. Way down that line. Way down that line. Way down that line.
Before you, Mom used to go camping with Chaser.
Chaser and I having a glass of wine together or something.
There you go. There's where we had your tent next to the...
Right, there you You with your crib in there, and there's your little chair that we set up at the picnic table.
And then your
Oh, yeah.
Grateful Dead show.
Yep. Yep, that's an excellent photo.